Watch out, Paul, old chum. King Tut's men are going to throw you in a pot of boiling oil.
Don't worry, Tim. This isn't oil. It's Aunt Hilda's witch's brew.
Well, it is the same cauldron, but I'd still better pull you out before he pops up.
Who? Oh, holy hand puppets. Mortimer. To the bat poles.
Welcome to the Bat Poles, where our cameras are never at canted angles. Because this isn't the villain's hideout. Well,
that's the only reason why.
This is audio, so they can't be.
Yeah.
This is Tim in Tokyo with my brother Paul in Hanover, New Hampshire.
Trying to deal with the aftermath of the punning gene that was handed down to us by our parents.
Our theme this time was from Niall Stenson from a video titled Batman Movie Themes 1966 to 2016 on guitar, uploaded to YouTube September 18th, 2016. My first reaction was, dynamics? Who needs them? Just play fortissimo all the way through.
Well, he's a technically pretty sophisticated player. And, he doesn't do any, wacky body movements. He's not trying to be, a heavy metal lead man or, Gene Simmons or something. Man, it was so technically perfect that I was bored. And I'm sorry to say that. But, it sounded pretty good. But there's kind of a tinny, narrow sound to all of the guitar parts. And I'm not quite sure why he's producing it that way, but he might be going for some specific effect. But it was still interesting because it was just interesting to hear how little bits and pieces of the Danny Elfman theme have kind of survived long after the Tim Burton, Joel Schumacher franchise had ended. They're like little bits of phrases that sound a little similar in the scores for the Christopher Nolans and also for, God help us, Batman versus Superman was one of them. So it was kind of fun to hear them all squashed together. But the dynamics, you're absolutely right. Wow.
Right, yeah, he needs to vary things a bit. He's just, the technically is good, and he's actually playing guitar, overdubbing himself with kind of the rhythm guitar and the lead part.
And the bass, yeah.
But, yeah, he needs to vary it up a bit.
Yeah, it was interesting. I was entertained for 10 minutes, although I cannot say that for every 10 to 15 minute theme recording we've discussed. It doesn't happen very often, but it does happen sometimes.
So this time we're talking once again about cartoon Batman references in non-Batman cartoons. So we're not going to cover the Super Friends here because that's Batman's a regular cast member on that one.
Right.
So, we talked about some others in the past. Today, we're talking about Mighty Mouse, The New Adventures, and The Simpsons. Or, I guess The Simpsons has had many Batman references over the years.
Right. And at least one instance where Adam West and Burt Ward were on the show together. But that one I wasn't able to find. I only have DVDs through seasons 1 through 8, which is the point at which I stopped watching the show regularly. But then when my son, who's 12, caught the Simpsons bug and watched every single episode twice, it was a little like coming home to watch Gilligan's Island. It's like, oh no, not this one again. Watch, even though we'd seen it so many times. But yeah, they weren't in Batman costume or anything, and there was some reference to the dynamic duo, but they were just playing themselves. I'll have to look that one up and see when it happened. I'm sure it's pretty easy to do. But yeah, there are any number of Batman references that just don't come to my mind at the moment. But we had one suggested to us that we hadn't originally thought of. But, we're trying to keep the number of them down. But we did include that one, or we are including that one in our discussion today.
Yeah, we've got 2 Simpsons episodes rather than the one that we teased last time. But let's start with Mighty Mouse, the one that I was reminded of by the False Face script.
Yes, because bring the bat, says False Face, and
my Batman bat.
Yeah, we thought he was going to start beating Batman with an actual furry, bewinged bat. So that was the Bat, and then Tim said, "Hey, wait a minute!" Light bulb appeared over his head because we're talking about animation, right? And said, "There's an episode of the Mighty Mouse: The New Adventures with a character named Bat." So that's how we ended up here.
Right, and I know that I saw it in late 1988, but I found that this series actually started in the fall of '87. And I guess it sounds like there were some new second season episodes, but this was a first season episode that I saw rerun in the second season, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
Originally aired October 3rd, 1987. So I'll put this episode, Night of the Bat, I'll put it in the show notes. It's on YouTube. And then also on YouTube, there is another version of it with commentary by Mighty Mouse writers John Kricfalusi and Tom Minton.
Yes, I think we can call John Kricfalusi John K from here on out, because that's how he signed his name on Ren and Stimpy episodes in the credits.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
When he was running his own animation studio called Spumco.
And by the way, I found that there is another Bat episode of Mighty Mouse besides this one, and I watched that on YouTube also, but I don't think there's really anything 66-y about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't bring it up to you. I don't think we really need to talk about that one.
Right. And I really wanted to watch... I picked up the DVD series, and I really wanted to watch the whole series after watching that single episode. But then I had a flashback to watching, 70 episodes out of 100 of Batfink. And, suddenly I was back in Saigon, running from the Viet Cong and the helicopters. The helicopters!
Here I come to save the day.
No! Yes, that instead of Ride of the Valkyries or The End by The Doors was playing in my head.
So in that commentary track, they say that they didn't understand Mighty Mouse's personality when they started, so they kept writing him out of the stories. And
that's hysterical.
And in this one, Mighty Mouse, in his other identity, is late for work. So he goes to a payphone and calls Bat and asks him to take care of the ongoing crime wave.
Hello, Bat. Mouse. How's tricks? Me? Oh, not much. How's the Lord? First time, really? Yeah? By the way, there's a crime wave sweeping the town, but I'm late for work. Can you handle it?
Leave it to me, old friend.
Which is all milk-based crimes.
His milk and milk products, dairy products of various sorts.
Yeah, so we're introduced to Bat and his faithful sidekick, the Bug Wonder. They don't have any takeoff of the name Robin. He's just the Bug Wonder.
His alias is, or his human identity is Tick.
Yeah.
Back in the seclusion of the Bat Pit, Bat is free to reveal his most closely guarded secret. For in reality, Bat and the Bug Wonder are none other than millionaire playbat Bruce Vane and his youthful ward, Tick.
Instead of Dick, of course.
Yeah.
But he's not Tick Grayson or anything.
And yeah, the Bug he's just a little red ball with legs.
Yes, and when his mouth opens, he actually splits in half right down the middle, like an egg that splits around its circumference. Not around the ends, but around the middle. Because at one point, his tongue is sticking out because he's almost swallowed something that Bat wants to analyze. So then he sticks his tongue, sticks ticks or the Bug Wonder's tongue under a slide. So it's a very surreally animated cartoon, and Looney Tunes are surreal too in their way, but this is much more surreal, a surreal style of animation. Everything from the backgrounds being completely askew and looking like they were just, quickly hand sketched and then, inked no matter how they looked. It's very stylized and very cool, but the fact that there's no attention paid whatsoever to the anatomy of an insect is kind of the tip of the iceberg of the surrealism of this episode.
According to the Chris Felucci and Minton commentary, this show really kind of set the template for a lot of the animation that came after it. And they're talking about how up to that point, like, the networks would not let you put any sight gags in Saturday morning cartoons.
It's so weird.
Yeah, it's no wonder they were so boring.
This was one of the first cartoons that had visual jokes.
Yeah.
They may have funny lines, but
and everything
in the 80s, we were literally not allowed to draw visual jokes in the cartoons. And Ralph was the first one to make it. He paved the way for us to do this because he kept the network people off our backs. Once we had pitched the stories, they basically signed off on them. And we added tons of visual gags, not only in the scripts, but in the storyboards themselves.
One of them was saying there were a lot of talented people in animation in the 80s, but you'd never know it from watching the Saturday morning cartoons because they were terrible.
Yeah. I mean, the only sight gags we got were usually characters like getting up their momentum to run, and there'd be like, sounds, and then they'd, take off, thinking of Scooby and Shaggy specifically.
Yeah, but Ralph Bakshi, who was behind this cartoon, he had the clout to get the network out of their hair, and they could get away with putting in sight gags and doing those askew background towns, with all that kind of energy in the lines, where they're not just normal shapes. They're like there's something extra to them, and they're all kind of goofy looking.
Yeah, they're expressionist almost. Wow, so I didn't realize, because I didn't hear the commentary track, I didn't realize that they had to get permission from the network to do.
It was the network.
Take those kinds of liberties.
The networks didn't want actual funny cartoons, apparently.
Or cartoons that showed any sign that an artist was working on them.
Yeah.
That had a personality and ideas. Well, speaking of ideas, I mean, this series had an incredible number of future all-stars from animation. Like Jim Reardon was a writer for the show, and he's a writer and director on The Simpsons now and has been for a long time. Andrew Stanton of Pixar fame was a writer in season 1. Doug Mensch
of Moon Knight
created
fame.
Moon Knight was a writer. Perhaps he did some work on this episode. Who knows? Who was the writer of this episode? I forgot to.
Hang on a second. I was going to look up something else on IMDb, and then you asked me a question that's in my notes. So,
sorry.
They talk in the video, in the commentary, about a woman who was doing the layouts, who became famous. Lynn something.
These are Lynn Naylor layouts here.
Lynn Naylor was the layout artist, and yeah, I guess she went on to greater things. But
yeah, let's see. I've got her up on IMDb, so I can do this in real time. She worked on the Ren and Stimpy show for John Kay, SpongeBob SquarePants, Batman the Animated Series, and Samurai Jack, and as well as get this, Animaniacs, the original Animaniacs.
Well,
so
you can really see that in this cartoon, the way that baby is drawn.
Yes, the baby with the gigantic eyes with all the kind of little shimmering pools in it.
To answer your other question, according to the commentary track, Jim Reardon was the main writer of this episode.
Yes, and Doug Mensch is actually one of the 3 writers who's listed for this episode as well. So,
yeah, so Doug Mensch and
Tom Minton,
and I think there was another name. So as I was watching these cartoons, I was kind of watching for, like, what elements of the show are they latching on to? What are the kind of, it kind of tells us what are the most remembered aspects of the show, you know, even by the casual fan as opposed to us, the people who were doing 200 episodes of a podcast about it.
What a couple of nutballs.
So, you know, of course, the idea of the bug wonder, the boy wonder, the phrasing, millionaire playbat Bruce Vane and his youthful ward.
Yes.
Tick. Of course, the word playboy wasn't used all that much on the show, but it did come up in a few cases.
Bruce Wayne is a millionaire playboy. Hardly a secret identity for Batman.
Yeah, I'm sure that nobody on the show, in the show's surroundings, wanted Playboy magazine to be associated with the Batman show in any way.
The Bug Wonder does have one Holy.
Right.
Holy Oleo. They have the Bat Pit instead of the Bat Cave.
Yes, I love that.
And they are the didactic duo.
And they nearly become the dehydrated duo when the cow, the villain, tries to actually does succeed in dehydrating them.
Yeah. And of course, there are fight sounds on the screen at one point, although they're very weird sound effects. What's that in your ear? Swab. What's that in your belly button? Lint.
Lint. Yeah, that was really funny. Just so unexpected, kind of out of the blue. But that's the kind of humor I expected from John Kay, specifically from the Ren and Stimpy show. Mm-hmm. Let's see, what else? Well, there is a call to the commissioner, or the commissioner calls him, and for some reason the phone is a frog.
Yeah,
a living frog.
The frog phone.
Just tried to imagine the frog saying, help, I'm charged with electricity. Kill me, please. Put me out of my misery. Frog doesn't seem to mind, though.
Are you addicted to classic TV shows? Did you spend the 80s sitting in front of the boob tube? Then join us for TV Tangents, where we examine television of the 20th century with barely any contemporary context. Visit Shout Engine, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcasts, and look for TV Tangents.
Are you tired of fanboy comics podcasts? Looking for a show that really appreciates the comics storytelling medium and how it works? A show that looks at comics from any genre and anywhere in the world, comparing the storytelling techniques of different creators in different comics cultures, with manga, newspaper strips, European comics, and more, discussed alongside mainstream US comics. A show that includes talks with well-known creators like James Robinson and Dan Jurgens, and with less famous creators that you really should know. And hey, we'll even critique your comic. If you're looking for that show, then you're looking for Deconstructing Comics, and it's right here at deconstructingcomics.com. Also available in iTunes and on Stitcher. This is Tim saying check out our show on Wednesdays. That's Deconstructing Comics.
Now, when I first saw the Bat figure, the character design is, one that reminds me a little bit of Gru from Despicable Me. Gigantic, or Megaton Man, right? The Don Simpson character. Gigantic torso and huge pecs and huge biceps and deltoids, but tiny little legs. Now, Gru from Despicable Me doesn't have giant muscles, but he does have a giant upper body and then those scrawny, tiny little thin legs. So I thought, Frank Miller. Right, they're going for some kind of Dark Knight thing.
Well, the way that Bat talks about, he can't stand those, villains, the crime that they do, that sounds a little more Frank Miller-y. That's not 66.
At last, another chance to squash the criminal vermin of this city.
Yes, it's Bat, masked defender of justice. Bat has dedicated his life to wiping out corruption and filth in this diseased society of ours. With the help of his faithful sidekick, the Bug Wonder.
To the Manmobile, Bug Wonder!
Once again, the Manmobile roars into the night, striking fear into the hearts of evildoers everywhere.
Taste cold justice, you disreputable henchman types.
Yeah, that sounds a little more, hysterical, revengey in a way that never, would have never crossed the lips of Adam West.
Yeah, and of course, keep in mind, this is before Batman 89, so there's no Tim Burton influence on this.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, that's an interesting point.
Yeah, just barely before.
So, but then once the youthful ward and the, millionaire playboy stuff started coming up, it became, much clearer that there was a major 66 backdrop to this.
Mm-hmm. Now, I wondered, I think in this, or maybe a lot of cartoons where Batman comes up, I wonder if they feel like they are specifically referencing 66, or if they just kind of are feeling like that's Batman. You see the distinction I'm making? Especially before any of the other movies had come out, maybe Batman 66 is all that comes to mind for a lot of people when they hear of Batman.
Right. Maybe Batman 66 had not necessarily by this time become a thing unto itself, like a version of Batman unto itself. It was just like one of the many ways in which Batman has been represented rather than having some kind of specificity. So it could be. It was
still the only live action, except for the 40s serials.
Right.
The only other live action Batman.
Yes. No disrespect to Vietnam vets, but I'm back in Saigon again, listening to the theme over and over and over again as every new episode began.
There goes that car over the cliff.
Exactly. But yeah, I think you've got a point there that there might just be a sense that the animators in '89 and writers and directors are just thinking of the 66 Batman as just one of many Batmans in a large pool of Batman references and possibilities for the character that they're drawing out.
A few other things from the commentary. John Kay says he wanted to make fun of the concept of a superhero who doesn't have any superpowers.
I've always thought superheroes were hilarious because of how preposterous they are. And especially by the 80s, people were starting to take Batman seriously with things like The Dark Knight.
It just had come out, this year. It's 87.
So I wanted to make a cartoon that just completely made fun of the whole concept of a superhero that doesn't have any superpowers. So we came up with Bat-Bat, who has the powers of a bat.
But then, because Jim Reardon was so good at writing one-liners, they decided to have the plot revolve around the one-liners.
Right.
And so when he's tied, the death trap is... there's another Batman 66 aspect. The death trap that the cow puts them in is that there's this kind of machine that will monitor Bat-Bat's one-liners. And if he makes a certain number of one-liners, then it will turn them into powdered milk.
Powdered milk, right.
And, of course, he can't control himself, and he just keeps saying one-liners, and they get turned into powder.
Ha-ha! Ha-ha! Yeah! As you can see, Bat-Bat, you are trapped in a milk dehydrating machine.
This is an utter mistake.
Flipping to the end, eh? Well, I expected that. This bad joke-o-meter measures the corniness of your one-liners. When the ratings hand hits 0, you and the Bug Blunder will be instantly turned into powdered superhero. Ha ha ha!
You friend?
I think he means fiend.
Yeah, and there's even a dial with an arrow that shows, they've gone from 9 to 7 to 5 to 3 to 0, and I'm not sure what that's measuring exactly. But once it gets to 0, then they're dehydrated, and Bat-Bat just can't control himself. But I thought it was the quality of the jokes, the one-liners as well, that was the problem here. If the one-liners were good, I don't think the needle would have dropped. But do you remember the line near the end? There's, what kid would ever understand this? And that's the beauty of it. But I think Bat-Bat says, we told them, we played an entire USO show and the thing blew itself up or something like that. So I'm thinking like, Bob Hope making really gross sex jokes to tall, beautiful models standing next to him at a USO show. That was great. Yep. Stand aside, Catskill comedians. You haven't seen terrible until you've seen a USO show.
Yeah, well, that other Bat episode, which I don't have the title of in front of me, is centered around his bad jokes, and Mighty Mouse is trying to break him of the habit of making bad jokes.
I see. So Mighty Mouse does have something to do in that episode besides calling Bat in to take over for him while he's working the day shift.
Yeah, he's actually involved in the story in that one.
Yeah, I'm just looking at a picture of Bat here on the web and seeing that, even his back muscles are gigantic. They stick out like female breasts out of his back when he's bent over toward the camera, which was a little bit surprising.
Oh, the other Bat appearance is called Bat with a Golden Tongue.
Okay, right. So the golden tongue refers to his terrible one-liners, I suppose. Yeah. Well, there anything else? I mean, the cow as a villain. What 66 allusions might we find there? He certainly isn't like any villain. He's an anthropomorphic cow, so he doesn't really fit. It's like false face? No, not really. Oh, remember the Rogues Gallery. He's got like 10 face and no face, and and then some guy with a completely normal name, I think. But he's trying
who was supposed to be Ralph Bakshi.
One of these fiends is responsible for these dastardly dairy crimes. But which one is it? 10 Face? No Face? Ralph Man?
The last one, because the Ralph, I think they call him.
Yes, that's right. That totally got past me. But he's, he and the Bug Wonder look, and we look along with them. It's a first-person camera at the portraits of these various members of the Rogues Gallery. And then when it comes to the cow, even though this has been, these have been dairy-themed crimes, there are big arrows pointing to the portrait of the cow he's got up in the wall.
Huge portrait.
Yeah, and so he still doesn't get it until he comes up with the idea himself, finally, that it's the cow who's perpetrating these crimes. So that's kind of funny. So, but of course there was no Two-Face in the cartoon, but they are, with 10 face and no face, they are referring to actual Batman villains.
Yeah. The 10 face, those are the faces of the crew on the cartoon.
That doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, if they actually made the fact that Jim Reardon was really good at writing one-liners and built episodes around that, and made both the Bat episodes into episodes basically about Jim Reardon and his talent, this is a very reflexive series, clearly.
There's a lot of self-referential stuff. When Mighty Mouse is in the phone booth and talking to Bat, and he draws a picture on the side of the phone booth. He's drawing John Chris
I wondered about that.
Chris Falusi,
I wondered about that because it was clearly clearly a caricature of a real face. It wasn't the more generic faces of the characters we get elsewhere. Oh, the second Mighty Mouse cartoon. What is the second Bat Mighty Mouse cartoon, which is the
Bat with a golden tongue. Yeah.
I just found a frame enlargement from it online on Tumblr, in which he's looking at his Rogues Gallery portraits, and there's a clear parody of the Black Cat from Spider-Man among his rogues. I mean, it looks more like the Black Cat than Catwoman. It looks like it's certainly trying to be, or they're trying to make a parody of Catwoman here. But she looks as much like the Black Cat as she does like Catwoman.
Yeah, I think they zoom past that one in Night of the Bat. You can see it, but he doesn't stop there and comment on it.
Okay. But, this is definitely the Julie Newmar Catwoman that's being represented here. So there's a little bit of bat guano in that episode, too.
Oh, and by the way, the insignia on his chest, they say, is guano.
But it didn't quite look like wings. The scalloping wasn't quite right. It looked mushier.
Yeah.
rounder. So thanks but no thanks for filling me in on that. There's a pile of crap on my insignia. I was just thinking about the cow's plot and wondering if that's resonates at all with any criminal plots on the show.
Well, I mean, there are so many episodes, arcs where the villain is doing themed crimes.
Sure, but it seems as though the cow, where it differs is the cow is kind of getting revenge on the dairy industry for stealing, the cow's thunder, I guess.
Right, rather than just, for a lark, like doing a lot of Zodiac-themed crimes or something.
Right, just to, bedevil Batman with puzzles he has to disentangle.
Yeah, he has more of a purpose.
Mm-hmm, and it's more personal. And just a little hysterical. He goes a little bit off the rails. His voice, really rises sometimes. The big joke of the episode, I think, is that the cow is a cow and male.
Right.
How about that?
Yeah, well, I don't know what's going on with cow anatomy in the story, because early on when you see the cow, although as they comment in the commentary, it takes 6 minutes to even get to the cow. But it looks like a farmer has just milked him, and what?
Yeah.
And then you see that woman cow at the award ceremony, and she's got human breasts.
Yeah, and they're gigantic. And those 8 udders, folks. She'd need to wear her bikini top in a completely different place, or her the décolletage of her dress. That is in this case.
Yeah. So forget everything you know about cow biology. It's not the way it is in this cartoon.
Yeah, they're not really worried about realistic animal behavior or anything else realistic about animals. That's
Realism?
Definitely not
What's
on their
that?
minds. Yeah. There's references to all kinds of stuff in the animation, not just members of the crew or various Batmans of different times, but there's also a character who looks exactly like Daffy Duck, who just is a fleeting victim of one of the cows.
Yeah, he's delivering milk.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I wouldn't have noticed this if it weren't mentioned in the commentary, because it goes by so fast. But at the beginning, when they're introducing Vermin City, which I guess is Bat's hometown, the camera is panning by a lot of crooks on the sidewalk, and you just there for a second, the camera at the very beginning of that pan, you can see Prince and Michael Jackson in a knife fight.
Beat it! Wow, okay. That's funny because Prince shows up inexplicably in the Radioactive Man episode of The Simpsons we're going to be talking about.
Yeah.
As a computer nerd who's nerding out on Radioactive Man, no less.
Well, I mean, if Radioactive Man is a stand-in for Batman, and Prince was a Batman fan, and supposedly the first thing he played on the piano was Hefti's Batman theme.
Well, sure. Wow, 6 degrees of bat separation.
Yeah, and of course his involvement in Batman '89.
Yes, his heavy involvement, although the soundtrack to the Batman film that he wrote was not actually the Batman film. It was a Batman film that existed in Prince's head. But it's a great album, but it's not the Tim Burton Batman soundtrack. It's the soundtrack for the Prince Batman that we don't ever get to see because he's kind of creating it through the soundtrack. Anyway, that's that good catch there, Tim. I hadn't even thought about Prince's Bat connection, but it is quite deep.
Oh, I just wanted to mention the cow is voiced by Michael Pataki. And apparently, I guess Charlie Adler is voicing Bat-Bat.
Okay.
And also, and this is a little bit relevant to Batman, another thing from the commentary, they point out the bah-ha-ha ending, which, was kind of, they mentioned they were making fun of Filmation there because,
Of course they were.
Look, Bat-Bat, it's Mighty Mouse.
Here I come to save the day.
A little late.
Well, the lights were against me.
Well, and it happened in Scooby-Doo, too, but, somebody would say something that was just barely funny a little bit, maybe, and then everybody dies laughing. So,
well,
of course,
they don't really die laughing. They just they just stand there because their bodies are all the same throughout the laughing, and then their mouths go ah.
Yeah, so Bat and Mighty Mouse have are cracking up at the end because Mighty Mouse makes a lame joke.
Yet another one. A super funny joke. As Tick, the Bug Wonder, might put it.
So let's move on to The Simpsons. So as we teased last time, we wanted to talk about Mr. Plow from Season 4, Episode 9, originally broadcast November 19th, 1992. This is an episode where Homer gets a snowplow and goes into business plowing driveways. I don't know what happened to the nuclear plant. You never see it in that episode.
Yeah, it's not so occasionally Homer just takes on completely different professions, and nevertheless, next episode he's back sleeping with a donut stuck in his face back at the plant.
Donuts. So the relevance to this one is Adam West's voice is in the episode as Adam West.
Right. There's a car show in this episode because Homer... I love the older episodes of The Simpsons because they always find some crazy, insane way to wee-wad their way toward the premise or into the main plot. So, there's got to be some motivation for Homer to get a plow or a truck that can have a plow on its front, and that motivation here is that he happened to run into Marge's car with his car and total them both. So he needs to get some other form of vehicular transportation, and they go to a car show. And of course, who would be at the car show but Adam West with the Batmobile?
Yeah, now Adam is not dressed as Batman. He's just dressed as Adam West. But yeah, the Batmobile is there. And of course, the kids don't know anything about Adam West Batman.
Mm-hmm.
Lisa says it's not the real Batman. Bart asks who Robin is.
Yes, who the H is Robin, I believe, is exactly what he says.
The Batmobile. Adam West! Hey kids, Batman!
Dad, that's not the real Batman.
Of course I'm Batman. See, here's a picture of me with Robin.
Who the hell's Robin?
Oh, I guess you're only familiar with the new Batman movies.
So, this is a few months after Batman Returns had come out. Mm-hmm. So there had been no Robin on a movie screen since the 66 film.
Right.
So then Adam launches into a string of criticisms of the Burton movies in comparison to 66.
Michelle Pfeiffer? The only true Catwoman is Julie Newmar, Lee Merriweather, or Eartha Kitt. And I didn't need molded plastic to improve my physique. Pure West.
Yeah, there's only one true Catwoman, and then he mentions all three actors who played her. That's a great moment. He seems a little unhinged. In fact, the Wikipedia description of the episode puts it this way. After an unsettling encounter with Adam West, a salesman talks Homer into getting a snowplow.
Well, then he starts doing the Batusi.
Yes, he said, why doesn't anybody dance anymore? He's wondering why there's no dancing in the Batman movies.
Yeah, so then Homer and Lisa and Bart are just kind of slowly backing away from him as he stands there doing the Batusi.
Yes, and Homer says, don't make eye contact.
And how come Batman doesn't dance anymore? Remember the Batusi?
Nice meeting you. Just keep moving. Don't make eye contact.
And West clearly is having a good time with this. He's not overplaying it. He's not over-exaggerating any of his lines, but he's making it sure that we know he's a little loopy by kind of putting a sing-song tone into his voice. That's fun.
And then he shows up again later because he had apparently contacted Homer about plowing his driveway, but it took Homer 45 minutes to get there, and his competitor Barney has already done the job.
Mr. West, you said there was a job for me.
There was, when I called you 45 minutes ago.
Go on, Superman! Your secret identity is safe with me!
Right. Barney, who's in really demeaning jobs at the beginning, he's dressed as a baby, is handing out flyers in front of a children's goods store, or a clothing store. And then he said, at least I couldn't be any more humiliated, or something like that. And then the pin comes loose in his diaper. And he's chasing after it, saying, "Come back, diaper!" And then he gets to the corner and turns around and he says, "Oh, hi, Mom." Buck naked. Anyway, but the premise is that Barney decides that he's going to be somebody, and the way he decides to be somebody is by slandering Homer and becoming a snowplower himself, and taking all of Homer's customers.
After Adam tells Homer he's too late to plow his driveway, then he jumps into the Batmobile, which is parked in front of his house. And then, talking about what are references to the series, or what do people remember about it, this one goes against expectations, because the Batmobile's running really rough and the muffler falls off.
Yeah, and it sounds like it's, barely hitting its cylinders on the way out, like it's going to stop any minute. Well, it starts with a direct reference to the kind of, turbines to speed moment. There's no dialogue, but there is a close-up of the flame shooting out of the exhaust. But then it starts to sputter.
Yeah, and the music also starts out sounding pretty much like the Batman theme, but that also kind of sputters and dies along with the car.
Alf Clausen, bless him, he's not doing music for the show anymore. They've replaced him for some crazy reason, and he doesn't understand why either. But he was doing the show for like 29 seasons or 27 seasons or something. But he's very good, and always has been, at writing melodies that are close enough to be unmistakable to the theme, the music the melody that he's ripping off. But they're just different enough that there's no way they could be, sued for infringement.
Now, there was one thing that bugged me about this, which is at the car show. I don't think it happens in the second Adam West scene, but at the car show, as Adam is talking, the camera starts to tilt. And I'm like, come on, he's not a villain. This isn't a villain's hideout. Because I think a lot of people, things that we've encountered over the course of doing this podcast, people talking about the canted angles, or the Dutch angles, or whatever you want to call it, without recognizing that only happened in villains' hideouts.
Right, it was quite a contained stylistic phenomenon.
But some people just think of it as generally something that happened on Batman.
Right.
You never saw the Batcave at a tilted angle.
No, certainly not, because it's not askew from, plumb. It is absolutely, it is perpendicular to the way vertical and horizontal lines ought to work, just like Batman riding the straight and narrow.
Right, and I think Dozier said they were at canted angles because the crooks were crooked.
Right.
So the picture was crooked.
Yep, they were bent, and so was the image.
So that one bit bugged me, but otherwise, this was funny.
Yeah, I suppose they wanted to squeeze in as many visual as well as verbal icons or references to the show as they could. So I can't really blame them for that, but for real purists like, I don't know, you and me and our listeners, it's a little bit galling.
And there was no opportunity to put fight sounds on the screen.
Not in this episode.
There's no fight in this episode. In our other Simpsons episode, there is.
That's right.
That's Radioactive Man from Season 7, Episode 2, September 24th, 1995. So Batman's not actually in this in any way, or Adam West, but they're going to be making a Radioactive Man movie in Springfield. And the key scene for our purposes is when the studio execs are discussing how to revive the Radioactive Man character. And one of them wants to bring back the original actor, Dirk Richter. But another says Richter is 73 years old and dead.
Yes, for the last time. He's apparently harangued about this before.
And the director of this movie says they want to stay as far away from the campy 70s version of Radioactive Man as possible. And then we get a flashback to a scene from Radioactive Man's campy 70s version. It's, of course, a fight against a villain called the Scoutmaster, who is clearly supposed to be Paul Lynde.
Oh, so clearly.
Billowing backpacks, Radioactive Man! It's the worst villain of them all! The Scoutmaster!
I see him, Fall Out Boy.
Go get him, Scouts! Don't be afraid to use your nails, boys!
They really nailed that, because in the 70s it's quite likely that Paul Lynde would have been roped into at least a window cameo on the show.
Mm-hmm. And again, following up on your point, yes, the music is about as Hefti-esque as you can get without it actually being the Hefti Batman theme.
Yes, that's Clausen for you. He walked that line very carefully.
So they have a fight, and then suddenly they stop fighting, and a bunch of girls come in, and the music gets surfier, and everybody starts dancing.
They're doing the mashed potato. Even the villains, even the hench people are doing
henchmen, yes, in their scout uniforms.
Short pants and all.
And I wondered if the fact that the music sounds kind of like surf is maybe a reference to Surf's Up Joker's Under.
Or maybe Surfside 6, which would mean they have a deep knowledge of the show.
But, I think that's one of the main episodes, specific episodes that comes to a lot of people's minds.
Right.
Batman and Joker in a surfing contest.
Yes, Batman or Adam West and Cesar Romero wearing their full makeup and costumes, except their pants have been replaced by jams.
Or they're wearing them over their pants, right?
Oh, that's right. That's right. Gosh. Yeah, you're right. We never did see Cesar Romero's knees.
No.
Which reminds me that our action figure had a broken knee. Our Joker Mego action figure had a broken knee that we had to, I think, tape shut.
As did Penguins.
Right. I think we put a Brad.
Yes.
So he had a game knee that would just it wouldn't stay in either position. It would just flap around in the wind. Anyway, boy, that's a very, very specific reference, and not one that would be funny to anybody else. But in any event, yeah, I think that's probably it. The familiarity. They're trying to harvest any familiarity, really familiar icons from the show that they can. The fight sounds were unbelievably good. Pooh is not a bad one. But what were some others? What were some other fight noises?
Oh, I didn't take notes on that.
Oh, here we go. Sound effects. This is the Simpsons wiki. Thank you very much. Radioactive Man references on Wiki Simpsons, the Simpsons wiki. This October 15th, 2021. The sound effects within said series are parodied as Zuff, Pan, Snuh, S-N-U-H, Bort, Pooh with 3 O's, Newt, Mint, probably a reference to comics and grading, and then finally Zach. Yeah, so as Z-A-K made me wonder if a baby was born in the office or something, that they decided to, include his name, the baby's name in among the fight sounds or something.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that's really funny stuff. I think there might be some camera canting in that scene as well. which might be appropriate here because we appear to be in the the Scoutmaster's hideout, I suppose.
Yeah, Paul Lynde being in this scene reminded me of my proposal that Two-Face should have been played by Charles Nelson Riley. I really want to see that, and it's impossible.
Yes, because Charles Nelson Riley is 90 years old and dead, unfortunately. Oh, well, at least he had a good run at the end of his career by appearing in a couple of episodes of The X-Files. He was a genius in those episodes. Looked very different, of course. You know, he was balding and white-haired, but he still got it, just like Donnie Most in Happy Days. I still got it.
Ho.
So these were, pleasing, unexpected little, nuggets of Batmania that were, The Simpsons has done other spots of this throughout its run. No, we could have talked about Family Guy because Adam West plays the mayor of the Family Guy town, Quahog, something like that. Anyway, the reason I don't know the name of the town is because I detest that show and really don't ever want to watch any more of it than I've already seen. Mainly what riles me about it is, yes, I know everybody's got responses to this, but it is a ripoff of The Simpsons. It just is. Right, Dad is fat and a bum and obnoxious and stupid. They've switched around the kids so that the baby is super intelligent rather than the older daughter being super intelligent. They live in a house that looks like the Simpsons house and is always introduced in kind of the same way, the same kind of aerial shot. Anyway, yes, Adam West is very interesting. It's very interesting that he played the role of the mayor on Family Guy for so long, but don't try and make me watch it. And so I'm afraid I can't discuss it. Tim can do a solo episode on it if he wants to, but I want no part of it.
So one of the listeners on the board, because I had posted on the All-Seeing, All-Knowing 66 Batman message board, asking for other cartoons that we could kind of talk about in this category. And, okay, it was... I guess I found it myself, and I posted it on the board. Fandom.com has simpsons.fandom.com/wiki/Batman. It lists, like, every little reference to Batman in The Simpsons. It's just, like... Just keep scrolling. And, some of them are just like little bits of dialogue or a sight gag or something, but so many Batman references.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. But I must have been comic book guy from The Simpsons who was collecting this stuff, and nobody else has as much time on his hands or her hands. Not to make fun of this person. It's nice to have the material. So what about the Radioactive Man movie? Is there anything in the movie that's being shot or the characterization of Radioactive Man? He does have Fallout Boy as his sidekick, but that's... something that came up in the Radioactive Man comics that the kids were reading in earlier seasons. So there is a Robin figure, but that's more comic book than 66 show reference.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. Nothing really jumped out at me from the movie that they're shooting. The focus of it is that Milhouse ends up being cast as Fallout Boy, and he is unhappy with it. He doesn't want to do it, and Bart wanted to and just can't seem to get noticed because he's too short.
Right. That heartbreaking moment when the casting director says, "Congratulations, you're the next Fallout Boy. That's what I'd be saying to you if you were half an inch taller." Or if you weren't half an inch too short, or an inch too short, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
It is kind of nice to see Rainer Wolfcastle, the Arnold Schwarzenegger figure, playing Radioactive Man and being unable to say the catchphrase "up and atom," get it, ATOM, which is I know you get it. Which is his catchphrase, but he doesn't get it because every time the dialogue coach says "up and atom," Wolfcastle says "up and at them." And then finally, after he's done that 4 or 5 times, the casting director waits a beat and then says, "Better." And the other great Wolfcastle moment is when they're using real acid, that's supposed to splash through.
Yeah. Why would they use real acid in shooting the death trap scene?
Well, there's so much nuclear waste lying around Springfield anyway. They might as well, have some use for it. Perhaps they were zoned or taxed into, having to use it by some kind of new law that was written, like the new tax laws that mean that the crew has to, pay thousands and thousands of dollars to the city of Springfield. They're milking the poor Hollywood types for all they're worth, all those naive Hollywood producers and directors and such. But when Wolfcastle is being, having real acid as his trap, so there is a trap, right? He's tied up, and there's actual acid is going to flow into this room at a certain point, and only Fall Out Boy can save him. But then when the acid actually comes, Wolfcastle puts on his goggles, these protective goggles, and then the acid, starts rushing in, and it takes him away on a kind of tidal wave of, green slop. And then you hear him in the background, off in the distance, saying, "My eyes, the goggles do nothing." Safety standards on the set, not the highest.
No.
So I guess that's it, but I'd forgotten about the trap, so that's certainly a 66 allusion.
So before we go to the break, coming up after the Patreon ad, the Bat audio section, we're starting bits of a appearance of Adam on the Mike Douglas show from June 12th, 1967. And I wanted to get your reaction to the lineup. I looked up this episode on IMDb.
Okay. I can hardly wait.
So
Paul Lynde, right?
No. Co-hosted by Vincent Price.
Okay.
With guests Adam West, Lulu, the Ellie Frankel Sextet, and author-psychiatrist Dr. Frederick Wortham.
Maybe he and Adam West could have a fist fight on stage, and fight sounds would be things like "gay," "headlights cover."
I wish I could watch that episode because I think it was one of those kinds of shows where the guests would just pile up on stage.
Mm-hmm. I didn't even recognize Lulu or the whatchamajigger singers that you mentioned.
Well, yeah, Lulu sang "To Sir with Love."
Oh, of course, yeah.
And some other 60s hits and one song in the 80s that I can't remember the title of right now.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, if it was one of those guest pile-up shows, I wish I could see what kind of conversation Wortham and Adam West might have had about Batman.
Oh, man. Fly on the wall. Or a fly watching TV. Yeah, we should see if we can dig that one up, because that could be pretty funny.
I haven't listened to the whole file that I have. I doubt if it gets into Wortham's part, but we will see.
That would be a real missed opportunity to send that out across the land.
Yeah. Okay, well, as Merv Griffin, played by Rick Moranis on SCTV, might say, we'll be right back.
Ooh.
Hello, I'm Ken Holzhauser, and if you're looking for something new in comic books, may I recommend my newest comic, The Quick and the Dad, a love letter to the DC, Marvel, Archie, and Harvey comics of my youth. This comic has everything. It has spaceships, dad jokes, alien invasions, time travel, supervillains, and so many bad puns. Hopefully you'll like it. It's the cutest comic you've never heard of, and it's available today in print and digital from indieplanet.com. That's The Quick and the Dad. Join that other dynamic duo, won't you?
Coming up, Adam talks to Mike Douglas, we say a few words about the late great High C, and we read your mail in the Bat Inbox. This show is listener-supported through Patreon. Join us for $2 a month and get access to outtakes from every To the Bat Polls episode, including this one. trivia quiz videos on 20th Century Entertainment. Our most recent video began a countdown of the TV shows we watched as kids that influenced us the most. Patrons also get the right to vote on future Bat Polls topics. For $4 a month, you also get the right to have an ad for your own project on the show once a month, and hours of exclusive podcasts, including our walk through the early years of The Amazing Spider-Man, a new episode every month. So go to patreon.com/deconcomics and select the level of your monthly donation. Thanks for listening, and thanks for your support.
Hello. I'm the mystery guest today, and welcome to the Mike Douglas Show with Mike's co-host, Vincent Price. And now, here's Mike!
Ladies and gentlemen, may I reintroduce Mr. Adam West, Batman.
Thank you, Mike.
Adam, excuse me for just one moment. We, for the last little skit we did, we needed a fellow about 6'3" who looks like Robert Goulet, so our makeup man, George Yoakum, volunteered for the job. Would you take a bow, George Yoakum, please? Adam, I understand you have a special reason for being here with us on the show.
Well, yes, I've always wanted to play a corpse in a sketch. No. The reason I'm here, and I'm very sincere about this, my mother lives in a little town called Gerhardt on the Oregon coast. And she called the other morning to me at Malibu, California, and she said, "You know, you're not ready to do the Mike Douglas Show." And I said, "Oh." And I realized this is her way of saying to me, "Please be on the Mike Douglas Show because it's my favorite show. And Mike Douglas is my favorite guy
that's
on
marvelous.
television."
That's marvelous.
So since Mother asked me to...
Let's wave to Mother.
Yeah. All of us.
And thank you.
Since Mother asked me to be here, I'm here.
She's probably out fishing, right?
Are you on what they call the hiatus now from your show?
Yes, I've had about 2 months off. And I've been traveling around a little bit.
And you're still working. You don't relax when you get time off.
Well, you know, it's been kind of an enjoyable thing, though. Because of the show, I've been able to go places and do things I wouldn't ordinarily have done.
Like what?
Well, for example, I could have never worn my tights and cape and cowl around in public before. But now I can just go anywhere, and somehow I'm recognized.
Do you make a lot of personal appearances?
Not very many, Mike, but I just finished 10 days in Detroit. I ran away and joined the circus.
Oh, wow.
The circus?
Mm-hmm.
What did you do in the circus?
Well, I brought Batman to the Dobrich International Circus for 10 days in Detroit. And I just kind of ride in and...
you don't fly in? I mean...
I don't fly. I swing.
Oh, no, that's the other one, isn't it? Yeah, you don't... You swing in.
We have our bat ropes.
Yeah,
and
but did
all
you
those exotic.
swing in?
Well, they asked if I could be shot out of the cannon.
Yeah.
And
were you?
No.
Oh.
No, I decided that I would much rather walk in. And so all I do is come into the circus, and we had arranged a fight with the acrobats. And we had some of the acrobats dressed as villains, Rat Finks, like Egghead here when he was on the show.
I was Egghead.
Right, exactly.
Right. Exactly. It was exciting, too.
And
you get to say hello to many of the kids?
Yeah, because we have a stage fight, and then what I try to do after every performance, we do a little monologue, and then I walk around the entire arena
shake hands.
And try to shake hands and see and talk to every child that comes forward.
What is the reaction of the young, little small fry when they see you?
Well, it's kind of a funny thing. Sometimes their mothers will bring them backstage afterward because they say something like, Timmy hasn't been able to talk, since you met. And it's a beautiful thing in their faces. And I thought that before I'm through playing this Batman character, I would like to meet personally as many children as I possibly can. I just got back from England, also where I did the Battersea Park Variety Clubs of Great Britain charity thing. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, it's a tremendous reward to me. First of all, children have been a great part of our success, and I think I owe them a great deal. So when you see them in front of you, and you're dressed in your funny suit, and you're going around and you're saying Batman-like remarks, their eyes, their faces are so genuine and nice that that is in itself is enough.
May I hear a Batman-like remark?
Oh, I say funny things like...
Read it the way you do. I love it.
No,
He's
please.
got the most marvelous delivery.
Hasn't he,
of
though?
this guy.
Do it the way you would do it.
Well, I don't know. Have you seen any unusual-looking people around here? Or, let's see, I think I said something like, hello, citizens. I'm just here in Detroit on a routine crime patrol. Actually, Mayor Kavanaugh asked me to come here to help the meter maids give out parking tickets.
Nothing quite so pleasant as a musical interlude, eh, boys?
You hired us to be criminals, Siren, not critics.
All we've been doing is losing a week of time while you sit around and strum the strings.
Patience, I can see, is not one of your virtues, if indeed you have any. But you needn't wait much longer, my dear Allegro. The first step in my fantastic plan has already been completed. Even as we converse, my operation is rapidly coming to fruition.
So before we get to your mail, we were quite sad to hear from our friends on the message board about the death of our frequent correspondent, High C, in July. We can't say we knew him well, but we sure heard from him often enough by email. If he had questions for us or comments or bits of information he thought we'd be interested in. And, I was thinking about, what this means that he's not with us anymore. And I couldn't help thinking, he always watched like a hawk for the post about a new Batpoles episode on the message board. And if I didn't put it up right away, I'd often get an email from him making sure I was okay and I hadn't forgotten to post it. And there was one case where I actually had completely forgotten, and so I appreciated the reminder. But on a couple of other occasions, it was just because I was busy, and unlike the podcast itself, I can set a timer and it just goes up whenever I have set it to. But the message board doesn't work that way, so I have to be here at 9 p.m. Japan time to put it up on the board. And one night I was out late, and of course I got an email from him like, I wasn't home, so I couldn't do it, but I didn't forget. But it's kind of sad to think now I'm not going to be getting an email from him if I forget to put it on the message board.
Yeah, I mean, even if you got a little frustrated with those moments, he always meant it in the kindest possible way, and it was great to know someone was waiting that, with that much anticipation for every new episode to show up.
Yeah. And he was on our podcast once. Of course, the topic was Siren. As we all knew about him, he loved the Siren episode and he loved Joan Collins.
Right. His icon on the Batboard is, in fact, Joan Collins as Siren from the episodes from season 3.
So, and next episode, we're going to include a clip of his conversation with us. I haven't had a chance to go back and listen to it yet. So, what did you want to say?
Well, a few things. We didn't know High C well, but he was the kind of listener who would ask after our health and how we were doing, and but he would also kind of check up on us in other ways. He was a very close listener. I think his sports reporting background, he was still a freelance sports reporter, what meant that he listened really carefully to the show. He read really carefully the materials that he would hand off to us, everything from scripts and treatments and studio documents, call sheets, and press stories that he dug up. He would, give us that kind of information freely and happily because he was interested in it, kind of fortifying our show, the podcast. And we always thanked him for it, but I'm not sure he would have minded if we didn't sometimes. He seemed so generous about that, and his generosity was really something that defines his memory for me as well. He had a really interesting sense of humor that resonated with Tim's and mine, sometimes in an uncanny way. He loved it when I said lawsuit, and even one of the last messages we got from him, which was on the board, suggests that, we should never feel ashamed to bring up the lawsuit joke because it was still funny. I'm not so sure, but at least he thought so. And I think he was the listener who commented on the New Order joke about Joy Division that I made when we were watching the first Bat serial from 44. Might not have been him, but I'd be surprised if it was not him. He who said that. He called us on our errors. He praised our occasional hits. I wanted to say hits, misses, and errors, but a reference to his sports background. But above all, he was really engaged with us and with the material. He even told us when an academic argument that I forwarded during an episode, it was a camp argument, didn't make sense to him, and we chatted with him about it at some length via email. He was a bit frustrated by the fact that he couldn't quite get it at first, and it's a pretty dense argument. Won't go back into it right now, but he was always generous and always kind in his words and tone. He was not a flamer by any stretch of the imagination. When he disagreed, he was not shy about it, but it was in the interest of engaging, not just insulting. He just wanted to know more, and he wanted to get his opinion expressed. And most of all, he was a Bat fan. One of the biggest Bat fans either of us will probably ever meet, and that's including us. I think he may be a bigger Bat fan than just about anybody except the gentlemen who actually run the Bat board. So we'll miss you, High C, and we'll miss you for lots of reasons. And thank you for being such a careful, generous, and kind and fun listener for so long. It's not going to be the same without you.
So, going into our mail, your response to our discussion of It's a Bird, It's a Plane, It's Superman, episode 187. This includes what turns out to be his final post about a Bat Pulls episode, High Seas.
Oh, dear.
So Paul, take the first one with Larry A.
Okay, yeah. Have we gotten a note from Larry A before or seen a post from him?
I don't think it's the same as Hello Larry. I think this is someone else, but I don't remember ever reading a message from him before.
Yes, I wonder if there will be Larry B, Larry C, Larry D, a whole host of Larrys, but thanks for posting about the podcast, Larry. Larry A. writes, I got to see Bob Holliday and the Road Company of It's a Bird at the St. Louis Mooney Municipal Opera. Forget about the 1975 version. Personally, I think that the real blame was the script. One song was, Don't They Know That the Strongest Man in the World Can Cry? Even as a 13-year-old, I knew that Superman just didn't let things get to him. I think they played IMHO somewhat fast and loose with the character. In my opinion, that's why it tanked. So yes, I'd say they were playing it for camp. Lots of exclamation marks after that. Yes, that's a good point. To have Superman get all weepy is one of the ways in which this is more a kind of parody of the musicals that it was, the musical history that this appears on the tail end of. That it's a parody of Superman necessarily. It's kind of it's like Dames at Sea, a musical that is more making fun of like ocean-bound musicals than it is actually an ocean-bound musical that takes itself as seriously as Rodgers and Hart, Rodgers and Hammerstein, all the musicals that came before from the 30s, 40s, and 50s.
Yeah, one as I think we talked about in that episode, probably this idea of Superman being able to cry was the writer's answer to the question, how do we make superheroes appealing to adults? So rather than going with so straight it's funny as Dozier and Company did, they tried to add some like human dimension to it, I guess.
Some pathos, some interior life. Maybe that's even meant to be parodic, because having a psychoanalyst actually in the musical, or someone who acts as Superman's psychoanalyst, the villain. I keep thinking of him as David Wayne now. I can't think of the character's name. But the musical's kind of aware of, what it's doing specifically to try to dimension out the characters a little.
Yeah. Theron of Andor writes, I am one of the many, I assume, who never saw the TV version of this. Not sure if it ever had TV airings in Australia.
Let's hope not for Australia's sake, Theron.
Although I did find the LP from the stage musical in a record store during all the media excitement being generated between Superman the movie and Superman 2. Superman 2 premiered down under a good 6 months before the USA.
Huh, that's interesting. Strange distribution pattern. Maybe not so strange. I don't know.
I do really like most of the songs. I remember playing the LP quite a lot in the next few years after buying it. Somehow I missed a one-night-only revival on stage in Sydney in 2014, and he links to a page about that.
Yeah, so that link will be up.
Well, I'll link to the Bat board, and you can follow any links. And
okay.
There's some illustrations, too, that you can see there. So
excellent. Okay, next post is from Batwinged Hornet. I will never know how anyone, and Batwinged Hornet is, for once, not holding back on his opinion. Just kidding. Let it rip, BH. I will never know how anyone who attended the Broadway musical or watched the TV version did not lose their minds and run into the streets with crossed eyes while they bit people. More brains. It zombified the public, apparently. It's that loony and just awful. If there's anything good about the TV version, it was Leslie Ann Warren as Lois. She read for the part in Donner's film, but as we all know, Margot Kidder landed the role as the most annoying version of the character. Might have some disagreements there, but not from me. I never had much opinion of Margot Kidder's role in that film, one way or the other. And if you think I'm being harsh in my comments about the concept of a Superman musical, just let Not Such a Superman's, "Oh, mommy, I didn't mean it," ricochet around your mind for a minute or two. Then you'll be ready to toss It's a Bird, It's a Plane, It's Superman in the same outhouse bowl next to Legends of the Superheroes. The other production where a so-called hero, Green Lantern, was subjected to psychoanalysis by Sinestro in disguise.
Yeah, so I fact-checked this because it sounded wrong to me. Yes, I actually dug out my DVD of Legends of the Superheroes.
Bless you, my son.
So Sinestro in Disguise does handwriting analysis on Green Lantern. Riddler does psychoanalysis on Captain Marvel.
Oh, right.
And don't worry, I'm not going to subject you to a clip of it. We'll just move on.
I'm sure Batwing Hornet thanks you as much as I do. So, picking up the post again, the fact that the musical was unearthed to be a TV version in the 70s was a comment on how superheroes were largely considered a joke by networks, the way the 66 Batman was viewed at that time, and the reason Electro Woman and Dyna Girl and Legends of the Superheroes ended up in front of cameras. The only exceptions to that terrible rule were The Incredible Hulk, The Amazing Spider-Man, or the 1974 Wonder Woman TV movie with Kathy Lee Crosby. Sure, there's disagreement about that, too. I was horribly disappointed in the Spider-Man show, but it wasn't in that mold. That is certainly true.
Yeah, they weren't trying to parody Spider-Man. It just wasn't possible in 1977 to do Spider-Man villains in live action.
Yeah, or even Spider-Man himself. The wall climbing stuff was so clearly a man being pulled up on a cord while moving his arms and legs to simulate crawling. But like you said, what were they going to do? So Batwing Hornet is certainly right about those that stream of superhero shows not being part of that paradigm. Tim, I have to disagree that Xanadu's leading man was unknown, as Michael Beck was becoming known at the time of the film's release, and is still well remembered today for starring in Walter Hill's 1979 gang action drama The Warriors. Yeah, a film I still haven't seen after all this time, and I know they should revoke my passport as or my film studies teacher guy license for not having seen it. Beck arguably has a greater pop culture footprint thanks to decades of love for the characters, scenes, and dialogue from The Warriors than the leads in the Broadway or TV version of It's a Bird, It's a Plane, It's Superman.
Okay. I have never seen The Warriors either, so I just had never heard of Michael Beck or never seen him anywhere.
Yes, but the Warriors is certainly a birthplace of many memes. Many, many memes.
Okay. Sprang Fan says, I remember staying up late to watch this and record it with a cassette player, as I did Batman and Star Trek, the latter of which actually works surprisingly well as a radio drama.
That makes sense.
Mostly I remember it because it took a lot of wheedling and bargaining to be allowed to stay up that late at age 10, when every responsible adult was convinced I watched, quote, way too much TV, unquote, as it was.
It's super bad for your eyes, Sprang Fan.
The whole affair taught me the wisdom of the advice, choose your battles. Whatever I had to promise in exchange for staying up wasn't worth it. I stuck with it till the end, partly because I'd started the recording, was determined to finish it, come what may, but it never really did get better. Naturally, I've long since lost the tape and probably never listened to it anyway. All I remember from the show itself was cheap sets, a pipsqueak Superman in a badly fitting costume, and way too many commercial breaks advertising a horror movie that utterly creeped me out as the only person still awake in a dark and quiet house.
Wow, punishment from every direction. Oh, I feel really sad for your 10-year-old self.
This, of course, was on the heels of Kathy Lee Crosby's Wonder Woman with Nicholas Hammond's Spider-Man still in the offing. Yeah, a few years later. It was a crummy time to be a young superhero fan for sure.
Sigh.
Okay, well now here's High C's message, which normally I probably would have edited somewhat, but under the circumstances I just left it completely as is. So.
Yeah, so here we go. High C wrote, great research, guys. I can see you put a lot of work into this. Yes, only one wide in Wide World of Sports. So even though the line from Blazing Saddles is, what in the wide, wide world of sports are you doing here? Or something like that. It was just one wide. Just listening to some of the tracks, and even with Holliday's obvious enthusiasm, I suspect one of the problems is much like Dozier with Dick Tracy and Mr. Memory. You've got the recognizable hero, but no recognizable villain for him to play off. But as you noted, Lex Luthor certainly doesn't fit in this universe. Right. Yeah, good call there on the Dozier, the Dick Tracy and Mr. Memory issue. I must admit that just in that one cut from the 1975 version, David Wayne still had it. He sounded menacing. It might have been interesting had he done the role in 1966, and he did a lot of Broadway around then. He could have given it some oomph. What might have been. By the way, in He and She, which ran in 1967 and 68, Jack Cassidy played the hero, Jetman, of a TV show born from the comic strip created by Richard Benjamin's character.
Yeah, which I knew because I watched it on YouTube. But,
right.
Yeah.
Semi-off topic, Batwinged Hornet. I do agree that I would have preferred Warren to Kidder in the Superman movies. That's interesting. I mean, Leslie Ann Warren is really talented, has had awards thrown at her entire career. It's hard to see that in her performance in the TV version of It's a Bird, It's a Plane. But apparently the way she was asked to play it is this kind of, high camp version of Lois Lane. Brings some self-awareness to the whole I want to be a homemaker rather than a reporter business, which is, pretty yucky. But it makes it a little bit parodic that she's such a kind of happy, grinning Stepford wife that it becomes kind of ludicrous that these are the things that she wants for herself, just the way that Warren plays it. So, maybe that was the right choice. But in any event, what might have been, and thanks, IC, for a lovely final parting message here. I really enjoyed the way that he would bring up past information from other episodes, like the Dick Tracy pilot that we discussed.
I think he remembered our episodes better than we did, because he was often quoting us back to ourselves, and we were going, did we say that?
Yeah, or, wow, that sounds pretty good. I wish we'd said that on our podcast. But yes, he paid such close attention to these, and I think lots of other podcasts and lots of other aspects of ways of knowing about Batman. He put the rest of us Bat fans to shame in some ways.
So Camden has a counterpoint on Leslie Ann Warren as Lois Lane. Someone will have to further convince me on why Leslie Ann Warren would have been suitable for the Christopher Reeve Superman. Her screen test with Reeve displayed a broad theatrical sensibility that wasn't suitable for the verisimilitude tone that Richard Donner was striving for. There's an interview with her that states that she wasn't trying to be as broad as you would be allowed to in the musical, but I don't think she fully recalls just how broad she was displaying herself in the screen test. It's a shame in regard to the Superman musical that we will probably never have a fully realized depiction of an unauthorized revision of the musical that played in Dallas of 2010. In 2010. Instead of sticking to the antiquated 1960s era of the original production, the musical was written to take place in the late 30s and early 40s with an aesthetic that emulated the Max Fleischer Superman cartoons. There are several pictures and a few reviews of this production on the internet, but I've had no luck in attempting to find the script. As I understand it, this production did unauthorized revisions that weren't cleared with the rights owners, and that caused it not to be produced further elsewhere. And right after that on the board, Scott Sebring posted some videos and stills from that Dallas performance.
And by golly, it does look like the Fleischer Superman cartoons in many ways.
Actually, in the show notes for our It's a Bird episode, I linked to an article by Abraham Reisman in Vulture. About that. Well, he mentions that's not completely about the Dallas production, but he does talk about the Dallas production in some detail. Unfortunately, I've used up my free article limit, and the paywall is blocking me from looking at the article again.
Yeah, same thing for me. Although I read it, a bunch of times and actually printed it for myself because I found it such an interesting resource. But I can't get to it either. I think it's New York Magazine that puts out the Vulture. So if you're interested in getting a subscription online to New York Magazine, you can read it easily. But one of the most interesting things about that, one of the most intriguing and kind of depressing things about that Reisman article for me is that when the Dallas Repertory Theater decided it wanted to do a revision of the Superman musical of It's a Bird, It's a Plane, they wrote to DC and called DC, and basically nobody cared. They were just not interested in doing anything but saying no, except insofar as the Dallas company could go ahead and do this in-house, never perform it again, and never publish it.
Well, I think what was going on was that they had checked with the authors of the musical,
right,
and they didn't think about the fact that it was copyrighted characters, and so they'd put this production together, and then DC found out, and so then they had a problem.
Yeah. So they did due diligence as far as theatrical revisions and restagings are concerned, but it never, as you say, never occurred to them that they would need to clear it with DC. Oh boy, DC and Marvel are, especially now that Marvel is part of Disney, are definitely the thought police when it comes to any kind of infringement. They defend their property to the very hilt. Email from Chris Kavanaugh. To follow up on Paul's research, yes, the first 2 seasons of Superman were in black and white, followed by 4 seasons of color. However, the episodes are equally divided because the first 2 seasons had 26 episodes apiece, while seasons 3 through 6 had 13 episodes each. The producers definitely had future syndication in mind. Even though seasons 3 through 6 were filmed in color, the color prints were not released until 1965, as color TV purchases began to grow. I remember our local kid show afternoon host, Major Astro, trumpeting the coming color episodes. And I remember telling myself, even though we still had a black and white set, that somehow the episodes would be at least a little more colorful. Yes, I remember having versions of that, that wasted hope myself when seeing, Batman in color at the bottom of our black and white screen with all the fuzz in it as we were trying to pick up a translator channel, or not a translator channel, but just a
distant channel.
A distant channel way that we were way outside of its market, but that was our only conduit to Batman in the mid-'70s.
Okay, so, as always, we'll have a thread for this episode in the 66 message board, so you can write to us there, write to us on our own blog, tothebatpoles.libsyn.com. I'm on Twitter at DconComics. Lots of ways to contact us. So next time, we're going to resume our look at women in Season 2 of Batman, picking up where we left off in episode 174. And we'll once again be joined by novelist Nancy Northcott.
It'll be good to chat with her again.
And we found there's so much to cover in Season 2 that this will be part 2 of 3.
Ooh, a 3-parter. Every Bat fan loves a 3-parter unless it's in Season 3.
Right. Yeah, this is not Londinium.
Oh, God, thank you.
So, we'll see you again in 2 weeks here at the same Bat RSS feed.
And so long, High C. We'll miss you very, very much.
Yes. Check the show notes for the video of the Niall Stenson version of the theme and other Batman themes, the videos for Night of the Bat-Bat and the commentary version of it, and links to the fandom.com list of Simpsons Batman references and to the thread on the message board about our episode on It's a Bird, It's a Plane, It's Superman. Thanks to David Maska and Chris Kavanaugh for the Adam West clip you heard in this episode. If you have any interesting Bat audio to pass on, or you'd like to make a donation to the show through PayPal, or you just want to drop us a line, the address is batpoles@deconstructingcomics.com. You can also comment on the thread for each episode and each script at 66batman.com/forums or on our blog at tothebatpoles.libsyn.com. We're on Twitter at DconComics and on the Deconstructing Comics channel on YouTube. You can hear outtakes from this and every episode of To the Batpoles and vote for topics for future episodes by supporting us at patreon.com/DconComics. You can also help us out by shopping via deconstructingcomics.com/Amazon, by sharing our episodes on your social media, and by subscribing to the show on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. And spread the word. Let all your friends who are Batman 66 fans know about the show. Next time, more talk about women in Season 2 of Batman with guest commentator Nancy Northcott. We'll see you in 2 weeks. To the Batpoles is a production of DeconstructingComics.com.